Chapter 16, Part 1. Finn had begun 3 days, and life in the bungalow seemed even more dismal than when Maya first came. Miss Minton saw that lessons went on, but though Maya worked as hard as she'd done before, she did so without joy. She didn't want to read about plants and animals any longer. She wanted to find them. She wanted to be out there in the forest, starting in real life, and much as Miss Minton loved books, she understood her. The weather, as the dry season got underway, became even hotter. In her room, Miss Minton took off her corset and then put it on again. Not because she was afraid of Miss Carter, but because she knew that British women did not throw off their underclothes, and because she had told Maya not to make a fuss when Finn went away. If Maya could behave well over the parting, she could behave well about the heat rash spreading up her back. Meanwhile, she watched Maya carefully, because there was no doubt that the Carters were becoming very strange indeed. As Mr. Carter's business went from bad to worse, he spent more and more time in his study, peering at his glass eyes, and since his own family would not look at them, he called in Maya. "Look at that one," he said to her. "It's the left eye of a tramp found dead in a ditch on Wilmington Common. Look at the way those blood vessels are painted. You wouldn't imagine a tramp could afford an eye like that." "Perhaps he was a very important person before he became a tramp," suggested Maya, but the eyes were beginning to get into her dreams. Mrs. Carter had set up what she had called her larder in a cupboard in the hall, but it was not a larder to store food. Instead, the bottles of plums or pats of butter. Instead, the shelves held flasks labelled poison and masks protecting the face and rubber gloves. There were glass giants of chloral hydrate and spray cans with nozzles, and a new, very large bottle labelled "Cockroach Killer, keep away from fire." "We'll be safe now," she told the girls. "No creepy crawlies will get past us now." She had also started to talk to the picture of Lady Parsons on the wall of the drawing room. "You were right," Maya heard her say to Lady Parsons' fierce red face. "I should have let Clifford go to prison instead of bringing him out here. Look what we have come to." And one morning, Maya came into the drawing room and found the portrait wreathed in red ribbon. "I hope you haven't forgotten that today is Lady Parsons' birthday," Mrs. Carter said to the twins. "Do you remember when she allowed you to share her cake?" "Yes, Mama, we wouldn't forget." "What kind of cake was it?" asked Maya. She had spoken without thinking, wanting to be polite. There was certainly nothing less that she interested in than was the cake that Miss Parsons had shared with Beatrice and Gwendolyn when they were still in England. The twins glared at her. Lady Parsons was there. Maya had no business even to ask. "It was a sponge cake with pink icing," said Mrs. Carter. "No, it wasn't, Mother. It had white icing," corrected Beatrice. "No, it didn't. It was covered in marzipan and grated chocolate," said Gwendolyn. They went on arguing, but Maya had forgotten them again, following Finn in her mind. Where was he? Did he have enough wood for the firebox? Were his maps accurate? Did he miss her at all? Finn did miss her. She would have been surprised to know how much. He had never sailed the Arabella alone for any distance, and it wasn't as easy as he'd hoped. While she was underway, he managed way, but when it came to anchoring in the evening or setting off at dawn, he would have given anything for another pair of hands. Not any pair of hands, Maya's. She'd obeyed his orders quickly, but not blindly, and he had learned to trust her completely. And she was nice, fun, quick to catch a joke and so interested in everything, asking about the birds and plants. This morning he found himself starting to say, "Look, Maya," when he saw an umbrella bird strutting along a branch, and when he realised that she wasn't there, the exotic creature with its sunshade of feathers had somehow seemed less exciting. After all, sharing was something everyone wanted to do. He could hear his father's voice calling, "Look, Finn, over here," a dozen times a day. But his father was dead, and he had left Maya, and suddenly, being alone, which he had always enjoyed, turned into loneliness, which was a very different thing. He had anchored close to the sandbank, a beautiful place sheltered by large fronded palms, and found a nest of turtle eggs. A shoal of black banded fishes glided past the boat. He had caught some earlier, using pieces of banana to bait his line, and they made a delicious supper. He'd hardly touched his stores, and the Arabella was going steadily. "What's the matter with me?" said Finn. He was doing what his father had suggested. He was going to see the Zante, but now he wondered what it was all about. They were just as likely to put an arrow through him as to welcome him with open arms. The dog, who had been curled up on the foredeck, thumped once with his tail, then got to his feet and offered him a wet nose for comfort. "It's all right," said Finn to the dog. "It's all right, Rob." But there was more to his unease than loneliness. He knew he could not have taken Maya. He had no idea how the journey was going to end. And in any case, Miss Minton would have never allowed her to come. All the same, he felt as if he should not have left her. He remembered Clover saying, "But Maya shouldn't live in a house that's been cursed." Only that was silly. He had told Fura and the others to look after her, and they had promised. It was that other side of him, the Indian side, which went in for rubbish like premonitions and inklings and things he felt without knowing why. Suddenly furious with himself, Quinn called for his haversack, turned up the lamp, and took out Caesar's Gallic walls. After marching from the country of Menapai, he translated, and became an ordinary English schoolboy doing his homework. When Finn had been gone for nearly a week, the great event which the twins had been expected actually happened. Colonel De Silva arrived in the police launch, bringing the reward for the capture of Bernard Sandler's son. He brought it, as he had promised, in Brazilian notes that it could be divided into 2 equal parts, but he warned the twins to get it to a bank as soon as possible. "If you don't have an account, your parents should bank it for you." But the twins did not mean to do that. As De Silva left, they were already counting out their separate heaps on the dining room table. 20,000 milreis each. For a short time, Beatrice and Gwendolyn were perfectly happy. Miss Minton and the Professor had become friends. He had taken the butterfly which he had found to the collector in Manos who had paid her. He had also lent her a collecting tin and some preservative, and though so far she had not found anything else worth selling, she was secretly proud of having become a naturalist. Because Maya now had lunch with the Holtmans after her music lesson, Miss Minton lunched with the Professor in the little cafe he had shown her. But being friends did not mean blabbing out one's troubles, and Miss Minton was slow to share with the Professor her anxieties about Maya. It was only when he particularly asked about her that she said, "I'm not happy about the way things are going at the Carters. The twins are bullying Maya more openly now, and their mother seems to live in a fantasy world. She talks to the portrait of Lady Parsons, and sometimes I'm afraid she..." But Miss Minton stopped there, not liking to admit that her employer was possibly losing her mind. "They will have anxieties about Mr. Carter's business," said the Professor. "I understand that Gonzales is paying for Carter's blood. He certainly seems to owe enormous sums of money. Isn't there anywhere else that you can take Maya?" Miss Minton hesitated. Even to the Professor, she preferred not to reveal her plan before she was sure it could be carried out. "I've written to Mr. Murray," was all she said. And then asked about his work, and he sighed deeply. "Caruthers is dead," he said, and his large pink forehead creased into lines like a mournful pug's. Miss Minton waited. She didn't think that she had heard about Caruthers. "He was a brilliant man, knew more about extinct animals than anyone I knew, but they hounded him." "Who hounded him?" asked Miss Minton. "The proper scientists. You should have seen what they wrote about him in the papers. An unrealistic dreamer, a man who let himself be led away by the myths and stories, always searching for the impossible." What was he searching for? The Professor put down his fork. He seemed to be looking into the distance. Then he said, "The giant sloth." "The bones, you mean? The skeleton? Like your rib?" asked Miss Minton. "No, the beast itself. He was convinced it wasn't extinct. The natives have always had stories about it. They call it the Maupagari, a great creature with reddish hair which walks on its curved claws. You get sightings of it every so often." He sighed. "It was Caruthers who got me interested in sloths. We were friends in Cambridge. And now..." "How did he die?" asked Miss Minton. The Professor shrugged. "He was searching somewhere in the Mato Grosso and he got a fever. It's not so difficult to die out there. Personally, I think they broke his heart." Miss Minton waited while he dabbed his eyes with his handkerchief, and then she said, "Perhaps it wasn't such a bad way to go. Still working, still searching. Better than dying in hospital with strangers." Yes, you're right. But I wish..." trailed off the Professor. Something now occurred to Miss Minton. "You don't think he was right, do you? That the sloth was not extinct? You don't agree with him?" The Professor blushed. No, he said. "It's most unlikely." But he didn't meet her eyes. Miss Minton now gathered up her belongings. "I have to fetch Maya from her piano lesson," she said. When she left the restaurant, she did not go straight to the Holtmans. She crossed the square, turned down the street to the Kaminsky's mansion, and asked to speak to the Countess.